Welcome back to the Now Morning Show. It's 6:25 a.m. and it's time to shine a spotlight on our children.
As we get ready for the close of schools for the Christmas holidays, we want to give you some tips this morning on how you can keep your children safe during the Christmas holidays. To do so, we welcome back psychologist at the Children's Authority, Krista Ali. Good morning to you, Krista.
Good morning.
How are you doing this morning? Welcome back.
Thank you.
I feel like every year around this time, at least 3 times a year, we have this particular conversation.
Definitely.
About keeping children safe for the vacation. What tips would you give us to be aware of, things that we should be aware of, things that we should be checking for, maybe things that we haven't discussed before when it comes to keeping children safe for Christmas?
So, it's a lot of stuff. Just generally this time of year, so much activities going on, so much things going on. The message that we really want to put out there is that in the midst of all of that, please don't let your children be a bythought or secondary thoughts. We want you all to remember to just basically put children at the forefront and plan ahead. So supervision of children is a non-negotiable subject, right? We don't want television, we don't want devices, we don't want these things being the supervisors of your children. You need to make sure that if you are not there to supervise your child, somebody is there, some adult that you trust, somebody that is going to, pay attention to what they are doing and provide safety and security for your child. It's also very important for us to teach children ways to keep themselves safe, and that starts from way beyond and way before this time of the year. So, it's about talking to them from early on about the various ways that they can become unsafe. Because during this time of the year, what we find is that there's more time, opportunity, and space for negative things to happen, because children are just more vulnerable in this time when there's so much chaotic things going on. Everybody is busy. There's a lot more people in, the place is just generally crowded. That provides opportunity for predators. So while we look at it as, a time of joy and fun and festivity, family gatherings, how they would look at it as a time of opportunity. So we have to combat that in a way. And while we would prefer that people just don't abuse children, the reality...
Safe is better, right?
Right. But unfortunately, the reality of our particular society is that child abuse continues to be exceptionally high. Not a fun fact, but a fact is that reports of abuse actually goes down during this time of year. And that's not to say it's because abuse is not happening. I think it's just a matter of there's less opportunity for children to disclose incidents of abuse. Or, school is also out. And we know that a lot of trusted adults are in school, so that when January comes, everything sort of settled down. Children are back in school. We do find that the reports go up again.
Okay. So how do we get to create that safe space at home or in the family environment to be able to say, well, I am being abused?
So it's it's always what I say, where we have to maintain proper lines of communication with our children. But this is not supposed to be a one-time communication. This is supposed to be an ongoing thing between you and your child, where you teach the child how to actually disclose abuse. Because the only way that they will know something wrong is happening is if we tell them. So from a very young age, we want to teach children about body safety rules. And this is where we teach them about the names of their body parts, and we're not using nicknames. I know that that's a common thing. Yes, because we don't want any sort of, miscommunication with that. So the proper names, and then which body parts people are allowed to touch and which ones they are not, and in what context, right? So that takes us into okay touches and not okay touches, which we used to call good and bad touch, and we don't do that anymore because it is confusing to a child where you're telling me that this is a bad touch, but it doesn't feel bad, so then why is it bad? But okay and not okay is something that generally children from a very young age are able to understand, so we teach them about that. So for this particular period, another one that I want to introduce would be no secrets, only surprises.
Right? So we down with the gifts, but not with the bad stuff.
I'm so glad that you understood it quickly. Yes. So what we want to teach children is that it's not okay to have secrets with adults, because the word secrets has a sort of a negative connotation. You know, it's a heavy feeling and it's an unsafe feeling. And that's what we want to teach children. Anytime somebody asks you to keep a secret, that is not okay, and you need to tell me, because there's not supposed to be any secrets between you and your child.
Right.
Right? But for surprises, like let's say somebody says, we're not going to tell mommy that we bought her this present, right? A surprise has an end date, and at the end of it, everybody is going to be able to enjoy it, and it's a happy moment. Whereas a secret doesn't make you feel happy, and there's no end date, right? So teaching children and then giving them examples of what that would look like, so that they know that they can keep surprises, but that they cannot keep secrets.
Right. Now, here's the thing, right, Krista? If a child is able to say to their parent, I've been touched in a not okay way, or whatever the case is, or this adult telling me that we should keep this a secret, or whatever the case is, a lot of times I get the feeling children might be afraid, knowing their parents and knowing that some of the parents might fly off the handle, or they might react poorly, or they might themselves get up in trouble because of something that they're reporting that happened to them. What should the response of parents be, or how would you advise parents to receive that information?
What you just described there is definitely the sort of reactions that we see, and that is why a lot of children are afraid to disclose things, particularly when parents fly off the handle. I recently had a child who told me he didn't tell his parents that he was being bullied in school for an entire term because he thought his father would go in the school and get on crazy, right? In that way, what we want to tell parents is that when your child tells you something, you have to remember to remain calm and don't fly off the handle. Now, while you will be shocked, you have to try to as well keep your facial expressions in a manner that doesn't scare the child. I know it's easier said than done. It does take practice, I will tell you, because working in this profession for so long, it does take practice learning how to maintain composure no matter what a child tells you, right? So also, we want to encourage people to say thank you to the child after they've done that, because the amount of courage that it takes for a child to disclose something like that is probably extreme, right? So you want to let them know as well that I believe you and thank you for telling me. So those things are just very reassuring to the child that they did the right thing. Now, we don't encourage persons to confront anybody that the child is making an allegation about directly, because what you don't want to do is put yourself and the child in more danger. So after a child discloses, we really do recommend that it is reported to the relevant authorities, be it the police service, be it the children's authority.
Again, Krista, that's easier said than done, because I'm thinking about it from my perspective, right? And if my daughter were to come and tell me that somebody that we know, that we've been welcoming into our house, has done something inappropriate, while I will be calm with my daughter and very thankful with my daughter for telling me, I don't know if I would be as calm and level-headed to be able to say, well, let me call the police or the children's authority to report this person who I've had in my house, who has been around my family. Like, I think I would want to confront that person in particular, to be like, yo, we trusted you. Like, what the hell? You know? Is there a balance that we can find in terms of approaching the situation and dealing with it, or at least approaching the situation to say, well, here's what, I am going to report you to the children's authority?
Right.
Is that an approach that we should take, or we should just stay calm, pick up the phone, and call?
So this, of course, is on a case-by-case, and it really is dependent on the type of report that the child gives to you or whatever allegation is made. But no, I do not recommend confronting anybody, because you don't know what's going to happen next, right? And that these types of situations can become very volatile.
Of course they can.
And again, it's really about your safety, it's about the child's safety. And as a precaution, definitely I believe that the relevant authorities should be the ones responsible to intervene.
Krista, how long does an investigation about child abuse take?
It really depends, again, on the matter. We use a triage system where we have cases that are determined to be immediate, ones that are high medium, and low risk. And sometimes the investigation the length of time that the investigation takes would be dependent on that as well, based on the resources that we have at our agency.
Right. So in that case, right, if it is that my child were to come and report something to me, is it okay for me to tell this person, maybe not a confrontation, but to tell this person, you're not welcome here?
Oh, definitely.
For a while?
Most definitely. Most definitely. Now, the thing is, when you also go to make that report to the police as well, they would instruct you on specific things to do, including measures that you can take to keep your child safe, including not having that person within the space, and, you know, in terms of you making sure that that person is not around the child. Yeah, and I think it's okay if you feel like that's the best approach, to let them know that this is why. Or make up some reason as to why you're not allowed to come here, why the child can't interact with you anymore. Again, it really depends on the situation specifically, but you will get advice from the agency that you do make the report to in terms of what you should do next.
Yeah, I think that's important, because I think parents, most times that's the kind of news that would trigger you in very different ways, depending, like you said, on the extremity of the situation, and you might want to respond in a particular way. So I want to make sure we guide them accordingly in terms of, all right, this is a good approach to take, this is not a good approach to take, because I don't want it to be that the child now ends up without a parent because they go and do something that they regret, or something that can land them in a troublesome situation.
Exactly.
So,
and you know, speaking of things to not do, what you don't want to do is try to investigate with the child, and particularly asking a lot of leading questions, you know, and leading questions can end up happening very, very quickly. For example, asking a child what happened, that's okay. Right. Instead of saying, did somebody do something to you? Now, I've seen that happen a lot of times, particularly in the manner in which the question is asked to the child, all they interpret as fear.
Right.
And then from that fear, they're more likely to just go along with what you're saying and provide information, right? And I've seen people do this while recording the child. And this is definitely not, particularly very young children, and this is not something that we want people doing. Please allow the relevant authorities and the trained persons to conduct those interviews with the child, so that it is not a leading interview, and so that it doesn't, you know, bring about a sense of fear in the child. Yeah, so definitely flying off the handle after you receive that information is not something that we encourage, nor confronting the person, particularly in the presence of the child.
Okay, and what about informing the rest of the family?
That would be, you know, based on your discretion, and, you know, in terms of what you think might be the fallout of something like that. Again, it's really a case by case, and the thing is, there is no handbook on how to deal with these things, just like most things in parenting.
On the job training.
Yes. So it's a matter of thinking before you act. Yeah, definitely in this situation, because there's no playbook, there's no rule book that we can pick up and say, well, this is how I'm supposed to act. Yeah.
All right, Krista, let me say thank you for joining us this morning and sharing this bits of knowledge. I love that we keep adding to it every time you come. But before you leave, I want you to look into this camera and wish the nation a Merry Christmas, or however you choose to do so.
Okay, so, you know, the message that we want to put out there is that while everybody's having a Merry Christmas, we want to be mindful of our children and really keep them on the forefront. And remember that parenting requires planning, and you don't get a day off.
Wow, that's a harsh reality. Thank you very much, Krista Ali, psychologist at the Children's Authority, for joining us this morning and trying to make sure that we keep our children safe during the holiday season. We take a quick break and we come back with more in our morning show. Stick around.
Not later, but now. Think about the children.